Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Tea Time, the podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, I have a podcast called Tea Time, the podcast, and you can find it on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, and it's basically on most platforms. So whatever you love to listen to podcasts on, you can go and listen to content on the go. Welcome to Tea Time, the podcast. I am Cassie Marina, fondly known as the Branding Queen, and I am a digital branding expert helping businesses get online and thrive doing so. I am passionate about sharing my knowledge through content creation like this podcast, online classes, and workshops, as well as through the services of my branding agency to help you develop your online systems. Think of this podcast as the place to get the latest advice, strategies, tips, news, and inspiration on building your brand online using the tools available to us, but most importantly, thought-provoking content to improve your mindset, to maximize on these tools and put context to day-to-day developments in the online world of business, with a little bit of tea dishing facts and sass, because I really want you to thrive online. So thank you so much for tuning in. Let's begin. So in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about how to balance kids at home. Kids at home and getting work done. And during the time of like lockdown, quarantine, coronavirus, the people who usually don't work from home kind of got a taste of what it's like for people like entrepreneurs, work from home moms, who usually do this on a day-to-day basis, kind of got a taste of it. So even if you're like not an entrepreneur, you might be watching this because you can relate and you're probably looking for some tips. Now I'm going to let you know from now, this is very conversational style. I don't have like 4 top tips and all of that, but I'm really sharing my experience and my trials, my ups and downs, and how I maneuvered that, because I know I appear to like pump so much content and people wonder how. So I'm going to get into that today. All right, so I'm going to start off. So I've gotten asked about this and I'm going to address it. And I know like it's difficult for those who are wondering, it's very challenging. And again, if you're new to this, you're like, how do they do it, And like, it's definitely not easy. So the main person who asked me this question that I have in mind is someone who has young kids, right? Younger than mine. My kids are 7 and 9. And I've been doing this probably around since they were like 3 years old, and so like they were really small, and each stage comes with different trials and tribulations and new ways that you have to adjust. So just as you think that you've mastered like a process and it's like, okay, I think I got this, I was under control, the level up comes and you have to adjust to suit at each level. All right, so I'm going to start with when my kids were in their younger ages, and I'm speaking specifically to those who have kids who are younger than mine and more in the toddler age group. I would essentially just work at night. And I will save the daytime for doing like more the admin task and not the creative work. Now everybody's business is different, so take these like tips and see how you can incorporate it into your type of business. So for me, my creative work, I can't focus and be creative and create stuff for clients with distractions. I can't do it with constantly having to stop and attend and then come back, because it just interrupts the creative process. And that's why I would save the nighttime to do that. So I would like get them to bed by 8, and then I would give myself time to like ease into my work. I give myself space. I don't like try to hustle, because creative flow is something that you kind of have to ease yourself into. So by 8, sometimes by 9, because kids roll around, they come around, they need to pee, they need to they need to drink water. All of a sudden they want to drink water. Come on, we all know this, right? They want to drink water, and they want to, it happened just tonight, right? They want to drink water and they want to pee and all sorts of things. So it takes some time. So let's say by 9 they're in bed, and I give myself until about 10, maybe 11 for the most, to just like get it out of my system, to waste time, browse the internet, just look at things. But when I start, like, I'm in a zone. So by 10, 11, I'm in a zone. And I will have like a very focused, dedicated amount of work from, I usually would be done with my night shift by 1 a.m. in the morning or 2 a.m. And oftentimes, right, especially in those early entrepreneurship days, especially when your rates were like really low and you're taking on a lot of work in order to make up your monthly income, you have to take mass amounts of work to balance out the rate that you would charge. So 2 a.m. is something that I kind of reached to in recent times, and maybe like a year or two now. But then, like in the beginning when they were toddlers, I would be up until 4, 5. I would be working, and then the birds start chirping and the sun comes up, and it's like, damn, and that was just the norm. That just became the norm. And what I would do is like, okay, well, it's morning, so I would make breakfast. Like, you're just going straight from night to morning. I'd make breakfast. No, these are not healthy tips, but this is what I had to do in the earlies, right? And I would, yeah, so wrap up work. Because it's like 5, 6, I'm anticipating them waking up. I'll make breakfast, set them up. Remember, they're toddlers, they're not in school, so it's different. So make breakfast, give them that, and I know they're just gonna play with the toys, watch TV. And what I would do is I will take that time to sleep. Again, I know this is not healthy tips, because you're like, well, who's watching the kids? Now, every mom knows this. There's a type of sleep that we sleep, but where we're still conscious of the world around us. It's usually what we call shut eye, where you're just closing your eyes. And that will allow me to not feel, how to put it, crashed, right? I won't feel crashed. But if I, yeah, so if I continued my day as normal, like without sleep, then that's definitely not healthy for you or the kids either way, right? So these are the things that you kind of have to do and sacrifice. So I would take that shut eye until about 10, 11 in the day. And then I would usually use daytime hours to respond to emails, do the admin type stuff that does not require my undivided attention the way creative work requires that. I save that for the night, and I will do that. Then when my kids started school, well, actually, this would usually happen during the holiday time. But then, during the holiday time, when school was open, because my daughter was in preschool by the time I was like full-time in my business. So correction, that was usually be like a school is closed situation. But when school is open, my kids were in preschool. So here's the other scenario. I would do creative work at night, and I'll catch up on sleep during the day, or something like that. I can't really remember, but again, it changed at different stages. So another routine that I had was to work, right? They go to school, and from 8 or 7 o'clock, because I had a driver at that time, so they were gone by 8, and I would work straight up until 12:01. I'll take a nap so that by the time they got home at 3, I was like recharged, because you need to recharge your batteries to deal with kids when they get home. So from cooking dinner, lunch, that after school meal, doing the homework, whatever homework that they had, which really wasn't intense until they hit primary school. So that routine went on up until 2017. And then the routine completely changed again when I got a car, because now I had to do the picking up for myself, which always drained my energy. Like anytime I do school pickup, I just, for some reason, the sun drains my energy. So yeah, that's how I dealt with that. I would rely on like either naps during the day, work at night, and that is why Tea Time Tuesday had to go away, because I was no longer getting my naps, because now I have to do pickup, and Tea Time Tuesday had to go away, and that's where the Tea Time podcast came into play. So you constantly have to like roll with the punches and build your business process and systems and like your routine around your lifestyle, and not the other way around. And that is the freedom that entrepreneurship brings, because you really have to find a system that works. And that's the whole reason why we get into it. We get into it for a lot of personal reasons and professional reasons, because there are certain like dreams, goals, aspirations that you want to fulfill, and you just can't get that in a working environment. Right, so coming right off of that point rolls straight into my next point, which works perfectly, is that I was asked, or I get the expression that it's hard. And I feel it, and I agree, it is hard, but it's all hard. It just depends on the hard that you want to choose. And for me, when I was working in the agency and work being an hour away, I would have to take the water taxi from San Fernando to Port of Spain, and I'd have to catch the 6 o'clock water taxi, or 6:30 at latest. Fond memories, because it was like walking distance away from home. And many mornings I would be speed walking. Like I would be walking quite a distance in like 20 minutes just to catch the water taxi, so I can reach the Port of Spain by 7:30, so I could get to Woodbrook by 8 o'clock, because work would start around 8:30, right? So that was my routine. But that meant that by the time I essentially didn't, I felt like I never used to see my kids. That's just the bottom line. I felt like I never used to see them, because I would be gone just before they woke up to get ready for school, and then I would get back home most days around 5 if I'm lucky. Actually, no, not even 5. 5:36 if I'm lucky, which is when they start their routine for bedtime. They go to sleep. I start preparing a meal for this following day. And it was just like this routine that was like really, really frustrating. It was just like, you felt like a robot, right? I'm sure many people who work jobs, I won't say especially demanding jobs, but jobs that just take up so much of your day, it's like there's no home life balance. So I'm gone by the time they wake up. I reach home and they're in bed already sometimes, or on their way to bed. And that would happen from Monday to Friday. So I literally only saw my kids, interacted with them on the weekend, and that didn't feel natural to me, and I just had to stop. I was like, you know what I'm doing here at the agency is my talents, and I can take that same talent and make money on my own. And that's what I decided to do. After a year of working there, I just had to leave, and I started my thing. So that's me choosing which hard that I wanted. I chose the hard that allowed me to be home. I was tired still, but it's a lot more rewarding, because now I'm building something that's me, that's mine, and gives me flexibility. And this is where like online business was like my savior. And not just then, I've been in online business as a designer, because it allows me to work remotely since 2009. So it was no strange realm for me. I've been designing before that job. Yeah, so that is what happens with online. You get to work from home and be flexible. So that's why, like, if you're familiar with my brand, it's all meeting in person. I'm really enjoying this time, because now that digital business, online business, is getting the respect and validation that it deserves, and people aren't giving the kickback like they used to online meetings. So to touch on my next point, which people just kind of want to know, like how I cope with things today in present day and how I'm able to pump out so much content, this is what I have been doing. All right, so this was a very specific question that I decided to answer. So during this time of home, like this extended period of kids being home, what I've been doing, and not every day you get it right, not every day flows perfectly. Like some days you're just not energetically in a space to really be on top of things and balance in the homeschool and all of that. But here are a couple examples of what I have been doing. So one example is I'd take my laptop, come out of this office, and I would sit at the dining room table. I'll sit at the top at the dining room table, and the kids, I would give them exercises. The days that I've done that, I was really productive with creating blog post content. Anything that's like writing based, write captions, lay out my Instagram posts. I could do those things, and even though they would interrupt me, which can be frustrating sometimes, because like you're in a still, it's still creative work, coming up with those captions, coming up with the things that you want to see. It's not as hard. I could still pause and look at what I'm writing and keep it going. But I also made it perfectly clear, mommy is working. Please only ask questions if it's really, really important. Don't just keep chatting away. We're here to work. So I'm at work and they're at work. So that's one awesome strategy that worked well. But then as we went further into quarantine and my son's teacher started doing online schooling in the morning, that disrupted my morning schedule to create blog posts, because I have to now give up my device, and not just give it up. I have to sit with him to, navigate the computer. He's still getting used to that, and just making sure that he's focused. So I would sit, he sits here, I sit there, online school's happening, I help him type things, I'll ask him the question that Miss is asking, what's your answer? I'll type for him, and that usually finishes around 11:30. After that, I take a break, because honestly, I feel, yeah, so it's like you are in school again. You might think, well, you're just sitting there and he's the one in school, but no, like you're tired because you have to be engaged and making sure that he's learning, and it's a team effort between the parent, the child, and the teacher. The teacher does an excellent job, but we still have like our role to play, because the fact remains they're home and we're the ones who kind of have to manage the kids, right? My son isn't like the most independent child, so I'm working towards that. So yeah, so that is one way that things had to change. So now my routine is like my whole morning now goes to homeschooling with my son. I try my best to give my daughter work, because she doesn't have like online class. She just has to do worksheets. I give her stuff, a teacher sent stuff. And while we're doing online schooling, I try my best to like simultaneously have her doing something. And then when that's up, we take the break. Then it's time to get lunch ready. And my work day kind of just has to fit into everything else in the afternoon period. I let them know as well. I try my best. Again, try. It's something that is a daily challenge, where I let them know that, hey, I have given you all of my attention, but mommy also has work to do. And I know this won't work the same with those who have smaller kids. So this is where like the earlier scenario might be more applicable, where the entire day is devoted to them, because it's like I'm back, or you guys who have younger kids are back in a scenario where my life was like when they were small kids and they're home from school and it's holiday time. I kind of have to revert to that. I mean, when I see that they're distracted, or they're in the yard playing, or they're really engaged in something, I do come on the computer. But again, it's like the admin tasks, the organizational tasks, the very tactical things in business, but not really the creative things, which I save for at night. As you can probably tell, it's nighttime, so that's what I have to do with my content creation. And I haven't written any blogs lately, so that is probably something I should be doing again during the daytime. But I create my content based on what I am feeling inspired to create and the format that I know I need to be creating at the time. So right now it's podcast, YouTube. I will probably get to writing things again, but that is essentially how I get all my content done. And honestly, in the beginning of quarantine, I think creating content is how I maintained my sanity. I couldn't go live. It's just too distracting, too much activity around, and I just not in the space for like going live. But what I can do is stories. I can plan stories, I can create graphics, I can do that from Canva and still be engaged in stories. I could still create video content because it's not live and happening in real time, where because now at night I could create that video format type content. I could create IGTV videos if I wanted to. I could record podcasts. So I do all those things, again, creative things at night, but tactical things like writing, responding to emails, engaging with people, because it's daytime. That's when they're going to respond to messages, and that's the right time to respond to messages. I don't want to be engaging anyone in the middle of the night. So that is the things that happen in business during the day, and then I save certain types of activities for the night. So that's essentially how I balance, and it really just comes down to a lot of planning. I love using Asana. If you are familiar with me, my content, you've listened to the podcast before, you follow me on Instagram and you watch my Instagram stories, you would have heard me talk about Asana. So that's how I get my life organized. I kind of fell off using Asana, and I think we all do, because sometimes Asana can become overwhelming. But I got back on it and I just put everything in there. If I feel like my day wasn't very productive work-wise, then I'm in bed or I'm laying down. I'm just so tired from the day, because every day brings new challenges. Every day isn't perfect, and you sometimes just get derailed. So when instead of beating myself up, which I do sometimes, I would just grab my phone, because we always have our phones near to us. I would brain dump all the things that I need to get done. And then when I'm at the computer, I would organize it into Asana. Always, the one thing that always brings down my anxiety, because it's usually anxiety that keeps us back as well, the anxiety of the things that we need to do, is I just break it down to top threes. So, and before, when I fell off Asana, my good old notebook, trusty old notebook, I'd be like, okay, Cassia, what are my top threes for the day? And sometimes I also have like an overview top threes for the week. Like, what are the main projects that I need to complete this week? And I look at that even like on a day-to-day basis, where I outline, okay, what are my top threes? And then sometimes if I'm tempted to add to that top three, I don't add 4, 5, and 6. I just add one more item and I call it bonus. So once you get these top threes done and you feel like you can do more, this is a bonus task. So that's the next in priority. If I was to write another top three, that would be the number one on that next batch of top threes. And once you stay focused on these top threes for the day, like you're super focused, it takes away so much anxiety, and it allows you to really hone in on what's important that day, because we tell ourselves that everything is important, and that's really how I get things done. And another thing that I do is I break things up into categories, where it's like you have to say about yourself first, you have to work on your business first. So my thing is content. What's that one piece of content I need to create today? What's that main client thing that I need to complete today? And then I can't remember what the third category is, but that's how I break it up into those 3 categories: my stuff, the client stuff, and I can't remember what the other categories. I'll have to look back in my notes. But I did make like categories somewhere at the beginning of the year, which would be at the front. And I always would break up my day into like, okay, morning time, like when the kids are gone, that's when I'm going to create content, like during the day when I'm refreshed. Now I've had to pivot and change that, and that's business, that's life. And I think that's both the beauty of entrepreneurship, that you can pivot, and it can also sometimes, I think it's more the beauty. I can't really think of the con, but I think it's more life, that we just have to pivot at times. So I'm going to wrap up this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, you found it useful and it helped, spark some ideas to help you balance being a mom and working from home, and it gives you some ideas, definitely let me know in the comments below. And if you're listening via the podcast, be sure to leave a review on whichever platform you're listening on. I really appreciate it. But most importantly, what I absolutely love is when you screenshot this podcast. So I'm gonna wait. Okay, you should have screenshot it by now. And screenshot, post it to Instagram stories and tag me so I know that you enjoy this episode. That gives me a sense of feedback. I don't like these episodes to be like a one-way conversation. I want to hear from you guys in the comments. I want you to reshare and tell me what was your biggest takeaway. Like, engage and get involved in the conversation. But yeah, tag me and tag me so that I know that you shared it and I can give you a shout out. All right, so until the next episode, bye. Oh, also for my YouTube people, be sure to subscribe. Okay, be sure to subscribe.